Well, folks, Aaron Glenn had a very simple word for Aaron Rodgers, and that is adios, amigos. Let's talk about it. All right, folks, Michael Cohen here with you, Sports Talk Nation, as we are going to talk about the story that, of course, set the world on fire on Thursday. I haven't had a chance to really talk about it. It's been it got busy. Let's just say that. A couple of things that I just want to let you guys know about. Did a couple of interviews, first with Nick Baumgartner of The Athletic about the NFL Draft. We're going to have that coming up for you Monday night or Tuesday morning. That's coming up your way. We're going to post that to the channel. Also did an interview with DraftKings president Johnny Avilo about betting about what the betting is like for the NFL Draft. So did a lot of NFL Draft stuff towards the end of the week. And then, of course, just trying to get through the work week as well at the end of the week. So I didn't get a chance to really comment on this. But, man, the world just caught fire on this Aaron Rodgers news. So let's just go right into it here, because this all stemming from the interview that we knew would eventually come on the Pat McAfee show, as Aaron Rodgers went scorched earth in many ways against the New York Jets and against Aaron Glenn. And the thing that really just blew my mind, as well as the mind of just about everybody else who listened to this, is just the kind. This is why the Jets had to move on, folks. It's this kind of stuff, these kind of distractions, where you have a star player, great player, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer, one of the great players of all time. Absolutely loved watching Aaron Rodgers in the prime of his career with the Green Bay Packers. He was one of the greats of all time, no doubt about it. But the one thing about him is that he has a very strange personality, and not to mention, like a lot of superstar players, can be a diva, and that's how he came across in this interview with Pat McAfee, talking about how he had to fly across country on his own dime. This man can afford several trips across the world on over more than anybody else. This guy went from California to New Jersey to have what most people would consider a appropriate way to handle this kind of situation. Can you imagine if the Jets, Aaron Glenn or Darren Muji, had called Aaron Rodgers and said, hey, we're going to move on, we're done with you. Then the next thing you would hear from Rodgers on McAfee or wherever else would be, man, they could have called me in, they could have brought me in, we could have had a sit down, had a chat. Instead, they called me or left a message on my voicemail and told me that they were done. Then you never would have heard the end of it from that standpoint. So the Jets do the right thing. They say, hey, look, come on down, let's have a chat and talk about the future. They bring him in there, and as it's described by Rodgers, of course, things did not go very well. Now, let's just take this for what Rodgers says right here with regards to this kind of tit-for-tat that he and Glenn had going back and forth. He said, I don't want to be in front of the room saying something and have guys looking back at you. I asked, what does that mean? Are you assuming I would be in the back of the room undermining what you are saying? You don't know me. And he says, you don't know me. I said, exactly. That's why he flew across the country to have a face-to-face meeting. So he tried to paint. It felt like as this interview went on and on between McAfee and Aaron Rodgers, it felt like Rodgers was trying to just kind of intentionally paint himself as the victim in so many ways, and of course trying to send the message, I think, to his former teammates, say, hey, this guy Aaron Glenn, not a good dude, not exactly stand-up guy, walks out of the room after just a couple of minutes, brings in the GM who he just now met, and they decide to release me. These are bad dudes, and this is why the Jets had to move on. Remember all this talk over the last couple of years about leaks and about even Rodgers admitting at one point when he was on this team saying that they had to clean up the leaks and, keep things quiet and in-house. Wouldn't this be under the category of keeping things in-house and keeping things quiet? I would think so. And from that standpoint, all Rodgers did in this interview, this tell-all, even if his account and everything is 1,000% correct, and even if you happen to agree with some of the things he says, you can't dismiss the fact that this is why the Jets had to move on. Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji and the Jets, this new regime, they're in their right to decide what they want to do when they want to do it. If they felt that Aaron Rodgers, at this point in his career, at 41 going on 42, having just won 5 games in 2 years with the New York Jets, having told the previous regime to bring in all these guys that came over from Green Bay, whether it be Alan Lazard or Nathaniel Hackett. Of course, Hackett was here before Rodgers agreed to the trade, obviously, and, obviously Devontae Adams, all these guys, right, that came over here. And none of it really worked out, although I will give credit. Devontae Adams did work out for a few weeks there towards the end of last season, but you get the point. And that didn't work out. And all the guys that were a part of this situation, whether it be Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, his coaching staff, everybody out of the building, fired by the end of the year. Certainly in the case of Saleh and Joe Douglas, Week 5 and Week 11 of last season. Everyone got the axe. With not just, okay, and I understand, look, Rodgers got hurt the first year. I get that. The second year, he wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Is it all on Aaron Rodgers? No. But a lot of it was. And a lot of the play wasn't that good. There were a lot of moments where he had big turnovers and big moments, didn't play all that great. Yes, you can sit there and say offensive line wasn't that great. Running game wasn't great. All true. At times, the defense was a little porous. Absolutely true. But there was also times where Aaron Rodgers threw pick sixes to guys like Leonard Williams, who ran rumbling down the field like 100 yards untouched into the end zone for Seattle. There's the games and the moments against the LA Rams when the Jets, all they needed to do was get a first down and eventually make their way for a touchdown. He decides to airmail it into the back of the end zone to get his own personal record, and it turns into a turnover. These are the kind of things we're talking about. And that's why I think the Jets were doing right to make that decision to move on. So Rodgers can complain and bitch and moan all he wants about how he felt he was treated by the Jets going out the door. The fact is, that's part of the business. That's part of business, not just in the NFL, but all over the place. People unfortunately get laid off. People unfortunately get fired, get terminated. It happens. And when you have new regimes come in, new presidents, new GMs, new coaches, what have you, they're going to want to do it their way. And they have a right to do that. And Aaron Glenn and his staff, and of course Darren Muji and his staff, have the right to turn the page, and they did so. So you want to criticize them on the way they did it or the abruptness of it, okay, we can have that discussion as far as that's concerned. And certainly we can have the discussion about whether Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji are going to work out here in New York. We're going to start to have that conversation now moving forward. But I can't kill them. And I love the fact that so many Jet fans and even members of the media have jumped on the side of Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji on this one because they were right. It was time to move on from Aaron Rodgers, and we're moving on as well. So they're moving on, of course, with Justin Fields at the quarterback position. We'll find out how good Justin Fields is going to be. This is a great opportunity for him. Obviously, he comes here as the starting quarterback, no questions asked at this moment. He's going to have every opportunity to be the starter going into the start of the season. Everything the Jets have said, Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji have said, have been in support of Justin Fields to be that guy. It helps that he has his college receiver in Garrett Wilson right there. And right now, I think I read the other day that as the Jets were doing their all-season training, pretty much everybody was reporting. Guys like Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, both in contract years, reporting to camp. Guys are getting down to business. And that's the difference, I think, between what we've had with the Saleh, Douglas, Rodgers regime and what we could be having here with Aaron Glenn and company is more responsibility. And that's the biggest thing. Build a culture. Build a framework. Yes, we want to get to the playoffs. Yes, we want to end that huge 15-year drought, 14-year drought, whatever it is, and not make it a postseason. But you build that foundation first and go from there. Is Justin Fields that foundation piece? Could it be that, franchise quarterback that kind of like Baker Mayfield comes out of nowhere for Tampa Bay, or even to a lesser degree Sam Darnold in Minnesota before he cashed in on his major contract? I don't know. We'll find out in the coming months. But for now, he is the guy going forward. Whether it works out or not will be determined in the next few weeks, or the next several months, rather. And, of course, over time, will have to decide and judge on Glenn and Muji and how they perform as coaches and general manager. And that also begins this week with the NFL draft, and it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. Do they take Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, who a lot of people like? He is a guy who could be a jack of all trades, can make plays in the passing game, can make plays blocking, can make plays in the running game, can also make plays on special teams if you need him to. He is a very dynamic player, and he would be a very interesting choice, even though I'm not really big on taking tight end players that high in the draft. He is a very interesting prospect that you would have to seriously consider just taking at 7. Then, of course, you got the right tackle out of Missouri in Mumbai, who is a top prospect in his own right. A lot of people think the Jets could end up taking him with that 7th overall pick, or do the Jets trade down? We'll find out, but there's going to be a lot of moving pieces here in the draft, and this is what it's about for the Jets. It's about rebuilding, reestablishing a culture of responsibility, of focus, and I like the fact that the Jets haven't even responded to this Aaron Rodgers story. They just kind of let it die. That's all they've done. There's no reason to comment for them. Let the fans say it. Let the media say it. Let them comment as they are, and let the Jets focus on the next phase of their rebuild, quote-unquote rebuild, to get this team moving in the right direction again in 2025. So, folks, leave your thoughts below. How do you feel about this Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Glenn battle, if you will, that we heard about on the McAfee show last week? And, of course, as we move into the NFL draft. As I said, we're going to have some stuff coming up on the channel next couple of days on the draft. Lock it in here to Sports Talk Nation and like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time.